Greetings, YouTube. I'm a firm believer that you got to do what makes you happy. If you are burned out, if you are miserable, I don't care if you're talking about a relationship, whether that be a romantic one or a friendship or even family dynamics. If you're miserable in a relationship or if you're miserable in a job, if you're miserable in a hobby, it's going to be a domino effect to your overall mental health and the rest of your life. It is no secret, as I've talked about this from the beginning of my channel over 5 years ago, that one of my main inspirations for wanting to make videos was the great Seton himself, who really is a professional at his craft in ways that after 5 years I know I'll never be, but at the same time, I admire the grind, I admire the work ethic, and I admire the honesty that he approaches with his videos and with his gameplay. So when he stepped away, and it's hard for me to even point out like how many years it's been. It feels like it's been forever. When he stepped away, the community lost something that no one could replace, and I think we've desperately missed his voice. And he's popped in, chimed in every once in a while, maybe on Twitter. Maybe he'll make the occasional YouTube video, but it appears, and I don't want to jinx this, but it appears that he is relatively back in 2023 in ways that he hasn't, at least to start the year, in the last couple of years. That's something that as a community we should embrace and praise, because not just for nostalgia reasons, but also for like legitimate discourse reasons, he helps move the needle. My channel I still look at as like a mom and pop kind of channel. I have almost no impact on my channel. I'm not trying to say that to diminish my voice. It's just the reality of which I look at the lens of my voice. And I do think, as Kabam Broccoli talked to me about last year when I interviewed him, I do think that we've confirmed that Kabam watches the occasional video, but I don't think they're concerned about how I move the needle, even if my voice makes a difference on whether or not somebody buys a, say, trash offer. When it comes to the new Event Quest design, which I keep thinking there's 5, but there's 6. This feels like Heroic used to be. This feels like Master. This feels like Uncollected. This feels like Cavalier. This feels like Thronebreaker. And this feels like Paragon. That's my feedback. You can name them whatever you want. That's how it feels. Now, if Kabam had done the right thing and had at least kept, especially for Thronebreaker players, but I guess for both Thronebreaker and Paragon, the objective that gave us a good chunk of Tier 6 Basic and Tier 3 Alpha Catalyst fragments for exploring Cavalier, that would have been amazing. But they kind of moved that to Thronebreaker rewards and exploration for that. And they also made clear this month that both bosses were not going to be the easy cakewalk that we've seen in the past. Now, I get the appeal of that. They want to make more money in quarter number 1, and they also want people to test their rosters, which are way better, like infinitely better at the top of the food chain than they were a year ago to start out January of 2022. So that makes sense. I am not the voice of the Paragon player that has 30 rank 4s and maybe a rank 5. I'm a voice for somebody who's uncollected and has been trying to become Cavalier, or finally got to Cavalier and is trying to become Thronebreaker, and looks at the new Event Quest and says, this is some true BS. And Kabam, they don't outline all the specifics in their updated forum posts. They just say, we're tweaking everything. Me, being the naive idiot that I can be, thought that when they were adding Thronebreaker difficulty, they were just keeping everything else and then renaming it something. So I expected Heroic to now be Conqueror, right? I expected Normal to be Proven. I didn't expect to even have access to Contender. And I expected the PI to be about the same, nodes to be about the same. Gosh, was I wrong. And I heard immediately from several of you in the community. And I want to highlight a tweet that Seton put out, because I think as he does so well, he summarized from his perspective this this issue. He said, NGL, this is the worst monthly event quest plus side event scaling I've ever seen for anyone pre-Cavalier. Now, pre-Cavalier is uncollected and before, too. Heroic is harder master. True. Although, it's not heroic now. Are you talking about, I guess, what? Conqueror? Contender? Master is harder uncollected. Again, different name, but that's true. Uncollected is early Cavalier without broken easy mode nodes, which, I mean, there are certain champions like Warlock or Immortal Abomination that made those nodes so much fun to stack the Furies, right? It was actually fun to go into that content. Now, I guarantee you it was so much fun as he posted the word broken, easy, that people melted through the content too easily. And Kabam expected a certain percent of revenue, or at least revives and units to be used in those fights, and they were not being used even close to it. They saw the same problem when people used to easily explore Alliance War maps when they weren't supposed to be designed for that, and so they scaled it back, and then they overcorrected, so then they corrected again. It's a constant scaling. But this is a for-profit company, and this is a way for them to try to make money, and they just haven't made that much revenue, that much money in event quests. I hope we see some fixes pushed urgently, and this leads us to the Kabam Jacks forum post from Thursday, January 12th, and yes, it is now Friday, January 13th. Happy Friday the 13th. Hello, Summoners. The team is actively discussing this topic. We're hoping to know more soon, and hopefully by know more, I mean, you already know what the issues are. Hopefully you'll plan for more soon. When we announced Thronebreaker difficulty was coming to the contest, we also announced there would be a rework to all the other difficulties as well. Yeah, and that's the deceiving thing. You can announce a rework without it obviously being a buff in difficulty. A buff in PI, a buff in all this. And what's interesting, if you go to the thread on this, there's also this debate about auto fighting. Because Kabam's point is, even though they put auto fighting in for this very reason, and that deserves its own video topic, but the argument is, well, we don't care if you can't auto fight through difficult content and bosses anymore. You shouldn't have to. But that's the whole point of the button when you are driving, for example. So one of the suggestions was to return the PI to what it used to be, but not auto fight. Not have auto fight even be enabled, so that you force players to have to do the fights. Again, that seems like you're defeating the entire purpose of the design, but it's all back to a revenue issue for Kabam. So, Seton, thank you for putting your fantastic voice into this problem. I don't know what all the solutions are, but I know they overcorrected, and they also were a little shadily deceiving on what even a rework looks like, and the community has voiced their opinions, and they're not happy.